Today I'll be bringing you 3 projects redesigning pop shelf decor that I got after Christmas for 90% off. So here is the first redesign piece. So this round, of course I got it pop shelf. It was regularly $8 and I got it for 80 cents. So I'm just peeling the tags off the back. They come off pretty easily. And then I have my homemade Mod Podge, which you guys, if you're buying Mod Podge, you need to stop wasting your money and make your own. You can use either all-purpose school glue or the all-purpose Elmer's glue or the school glue. And you just put a cup of it in a container with a 1/4 cup of water. And it's just like the Mod Podge, the matte Mod Podge. So I have this piece of cloth here that I cut to fit into my tray. It has some birds on it, some like postage marks on it and all like that. A little bit of nature there. And then I noticed that you could see the words Merry Christmas underneath it. And I didn't like that because I might be selling this piece. So I'm just taking some white acrylic paint from Apple Barrel. And there was some, this was my first time using it, I think. So anyway, there was some on the lid there, so I just put it in there. And then I got the brilliant idea just to put my piece back over it with the paint being wet. That was a mistake because I got a little bit of paint on the bird because it seeped through the fabric. So now I have the brilliant idea of, drying the paint with my heat gun, which that works. And then I'm going to put more Mod Podge on because, of course, my other Mod Podge had already dried. So I'm just going to put my fabric back on it. Now, I sped up a lot of this video for you guys, so it's in under 30 minutes. But I hope that what I did is good for you guys. That, I didn't speed it up too much. So now I put my wood glue around the inside edge of my tray, and then I have this bead garland from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to set it in that glue that I just put on there. It's the wood glue from the Dollar Tree. So I used actually the whole garland except for one bead. And then I did make sure that to tie a knot in the end of it. There was a knot in the other end to make sure that the beads don't come off. Just trimming up the jute. And I just used the garland as is, like it was from the Dollar Tree. Now I did take, I think it was 10 beads here, 10 or 12, no 12 beads. And put it on some regular jute that I had, tied knots on the ends, and then tied knots in the very end. So knots to keep the beads in place, and then knots at the very end of the cord. And then I'm just going to use my staple gun to staple, these are now going to be handles to the outside of the tray. So I put 2 staples in each one. And they didn't really go in all the way, so I had to use my hammer to get them in further. There's my little hammer. So I made sure that the beads were on the top top rim of the tray. I don't want them to be below the tray. So once I got that side done, now I have to go to the other side and just do the same thing. And now we have both of them on there using my hammer. And now I cut 2 strips of leather. Now this is real thin leather that used to be like a pair of pants or something that I got at Goodwill. And I used my Cricut just to cut an oval shape to cover up the staples, because that was pretty ugly with the staples there for the handles. And I'm just using my wood glue to put on the piece of leather. And like I said, it's really thin leather. And when I cut it on my Cricut mat, I made sure the leather side, you know, the top side of the leather was on the mat. And that way it didn't mess up the mat by when you pull it off to have all that inside from the suede side of the leather, you know, pull up on your mat. So I cut this piece 5 inches by 1 inch, and it fit perfectly. Look at that. So I'm just going to do the same thing to the other side. There it is. Got a little extra glue there. I did clean up my tray later with a wipe. Now I'm taking these gold thumbtacks that I had on hand, and I'm just removing the stem part of it so that we just have the little tack head itself. And then I'm going to use some hot glue to put it on the ends of the leather pieces to make it look like that's what's holding it on. See that? Isn't that cute? I just think that finishes up the tray, makes it look nice. And I will be in a craft show in March, so this piece will be out there for sale. We'll did the same thing to the other side, and there's the tray. There it is leaning up against my wall. There you can see the leather piece, and there it is with a candle on it. I think it turned out really nice. So on to redesign number 2. So for this one here, we have this decor piece, and it was $4. Excuse me. So I paid 40 cents for it. And I'm just going to use another piece of that fabric. And actually this fabric I got at Goodwill a couple years ago. And it had actually come from Hobby Lobby. It still had the tag on it and all. So I'm just trimming it up to where I have what I need for the front part of this box. I'm just going to cut slits, and then I'll just rip it. This side I'm going to cut because it doesn't rip as nicely. So what I had to do to get the little extra edges off was I turned the piece upside down, and I'm just marking around the box with my pin so that I know where to cut. So I'm just going to trim up the fabric a little bit there. And now I'm just fraying the edges of the fabric, just pulling some of the fibers out. Then when I have it frayed as much as I want, I will Mod Podge it onto this piece after I paint it. So I don't want any of that to show through my fabric. So I'm going to get out my white acrylic paint and we're going to paint this whole piece. So I probably didn't need to do the sides, but the thing of it was there was like a little scratch on the bottom of piece of it. So to cover that up, I painted it. Now I'm just going to dry it before I put my Mod Podge on, because I don't want that paint seeping through my fabric. And I do not put Mod Podge on the top of my fabric. I just put it on where I add it to my piece. And now I'm just using my iron. I just thought, you know, since this piece is flat like this, that I would use my iron and kind of heat up the Mod Podge, dry it up a little bit. And now I cut this piece of gold iron-on vinyl, and it says Jesus Everything, but the everything was too small and it just kind of tore up. It didn't cut deep enough, so I wasn't able to use it, and you'll see what I do to fix that later. But the Jesus turned out great. I really liked it. I was trying to work getting the everything off, and then I was like, you know what, forget it. It was just too much. It wasn't working. But we'll get it later. So I just have the Jesus right now. I'm going to lay that down on my fabric, smooth it out. And then I'm going to get a little napkin, a cloth napkin that I have that I use for stuff like this. And then put my iron on top of it. And I'm adding pressure to my iron, and I'm doing it for 30 seconds. And then I move it and do it for another 30 seconds. Now you turn the steam off. You want to dry iron. And this vinyl, you had to peel it when it got cooler. So we need to let this sit and get cooler. And there it is. Nope, a piece of it was still not sticking down. So I took the iron to it a little bit more. So before you peel it all up, if it's not right, then just stop and iron it a little bit more. Now what I did was I cut another word everything. So I made it bigger, and that helped weeding. And so I was able to get the whole word. And I did move the pressure to a more pressure. I mean, it still took a little bit to weed it, but we got it. And the reason I used the iron-on vinyl, and here we go peeling off the carrier sheet for the Jesus, was because it was the color of gold that I wanted. Normally, I would have just used regular vinyl, But I wanted this particular color, and all I had it in was the iron-on. So whatever works. So you have to wait until it cools down before you pull the carrier sheet off with this type of vinyl. This particular brand, anyway. There's a little piece there that wasn't smoothed down all the way. Had a little bubble, so I'm taking my iron back to it. And it's done. And there it is. Jesus everything. And that's how I feel. Jesus everything. Just everything is Jesus. And there it is. Hanging on my wall. And now we're on to redesign number 3. So I actually bought 3 of these. So you saw the first one in the previous DIY. So I have 2 more in this one. So I'm using all 3 of these. And you can see how you can use these in different ways. So I just took my little hand sander there and I sanded down the top of it. And I did that to both of them instead of painting them. You know, either way, you can paint them or you can sand them. Sanding is a little messy. But anyway, I didn't feel like painting anymore. But any of the tools that you see me using, if I got them from Amazon, they will be in the description box. And that little hand sander will be in the description box. So I only put things in my description box from Amazon that I purchase from them and actually use and like myself. Again, I'm just fraying this a little bit. Now the one edge I didn't do anything to because it was the selvage. Wait until you see what these become. You'll be surprised. At least I think you'll be surprised. Maybe you won't. Maybe you already know. So I'm just trying to figure out the placement of my fabric. You know, what I want on this side of it. Once I figure it out, I'll cut it down. I mean, this fabric is pretty cool. I mean, it has birds and trees and then postmarks and words and stuff on it. When I saw that at the Goodwill, I just had to get it. I was like, yes, please. I really don't look at the fabrics too much when I go to the stores. But when I saw this, I was like, yeah, I want this. I figured I could do some DIYs with this. And if you like the crafts that you see me do here, please give me a thumbs up. And if you know of anybody that you think might like the crafts that I do, please feel free to share my videos with them. And I hope that I inspire someone to make something that they've seen me do on my channel. So now again, I'm just using my homemade Mod Podge to put my fabric onto the fronts of these pieces here. And again, these were 40 cents each, so I'm using 2 of them, so that'd be 80 cents. I'm using my iron again. And now I'm using my wood glue from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to put these 2 pieces together. So do you know what we're making yet? Well, you'll know what it is once I get this ironed on. You'll definitely know. Okay, so I'm using the same iron-on vinyl that I used in the previous redesign. Just weeding it. And if you haven't already guessed it, it's a book stack. Just a 2-piece book stack. So isn't that cool how you can take 2 of these, put them together, and make them look like books? I thought that was cool. I'm getting out my iron. I'm doing 30 seconds. Putting pressure on it, and I have it on the hottest setting without steam. Like I said, this type of vinyl, you have to wait till it cools down before you pull that off. So I'm just going to go to weeding my other piece. So that says nature is. And see how that comes right off once it cools down? Nature is God's handiwork. And isn't that true? He made everything in nature, and it all comes together, and everything works together. It's pretty cool. He thought of everything. Okay, so again, I'm putting my iron on it, putting pressure, 30 seconds. Now I'll let this cool down a little bit. Oh, I guess maybe not enough. Nature is God's handiwork. I thought that went with it because of the birds and the trees and stuff like that. Do you think it goes? Let me know in the comments. Okay, I think it's cool enough now. Let's pull this off. Yes, look how pretty that is. Although I think there was a bubble in the D, so I think I'm going to put my napkin back on and then iron that a little bit more. Just a little bit, not too much. And that takes care of it. So there we go. We have a 2-book stack, and now I'm going to take some jute that I have. I'm going to wrap it around about, I think, 7 times. And then I'm going to leave pretty long ends so we can tie that up. And yes, it does cover up one of the letters in handiwork, but I think that's okay. So now I'm just going to tie a knot in the jute. I'm going to glue the ends, put some glue on the ends of my jute pieces, roll it in my finger. When you do this, make sure your hot glue isn't so hot it's going to burn your fingers, because we're going to be adding some beads to these. And I'm just going to use some of the beads that we used for the tray. So I have another garland that I used for the handles on the tray, so I still have some of it left over. So we're going to add, I think it's 3 beads to each of the jute pieces there. And then I'm going to tie a knot, and I'm going to tie another knot on top of that knot to make sure the beads are not going to fall off. And then I'm going to trim the end of the jute. Do the same thing to the other piece of jute. So there we have our beads hanging from our jute. And now I'm going to make a bow. So I'm just wrapping my jute around for my fingers, probably about, I don't know, 12 times, something like that. 10 to 12 times. And then I'm just going to cut another piece of jute that I can use to tie it all together. Just going to kind of pinch it there in the middle and then tie a knot with my jute string. Make sure it's in the center. And then I'm just going to leave those strings hanging, but I will trim them up a little bit. And I'll glue that to the center of my jute knot there. Just going to hold it a little bit until the glue sets up. And there it is. Isn't that cute with that bird on there like that? Nature is God's handiwork. And there's the back of it with our little postmark and all. I like this book stack. Let me know which one of these three is your favorite. So here it is on my dresser. And here's all three pieces. So we have our tray, our shelf sitter, and our book stack. Can't talk, sorry. I'm going to show you now all three of them grouped together and in a tray with the candle on there. Again, I'm Liz with Liz's Crafts, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And if you have subscribed to my channel, thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate you so, so much, and I'll see you in the next video.